In this first video of lecture, I'd like to spend just a little time introducing the theory of self-determination theory and what that is. So to sort of give us an introduction to that, if you're doing the health behavior assignment, you're going to be asked to think about a health behavior that you want to change. And so maybe that's you want to drink more water, maybe you want to exercise more, maybe you're trying to eat healthier. This can be any array of different behaviors that might impact your health or stress levels in any way. You might want to implement more meditation, right? So you could think about what that health behavior is. You don't have to decide on that now, but if you have something in mind, you could hold that in your mind for a second and then think about why it is that you want to change this health behavior. And this question is really a big one that self-determination theory addresses in its research and theory, and so that's one of the things we're going to cover today. So if you think about why you might want to change your health behavior, maybe you don't really have one you want to change, or if you do, you don't know why. That's one possibility. Another is maybe you want to change it because you have to. Circumstances necessitate it. Maybe it's really critical that you change your diet in that way, or you will continue to be really sick. Maybe you want to do it because it's going to achieve you some other outcome, or maybe you need to do it to impress or to please others. Someone is forcing you or putting pressure on you to do this. Maybe you feel like you want to change this behavior because you know you should, that you'd feel guilty if you didn't change your behavior, and it's something you really should do for yourself. Or maybe you are doing it because you really want to. You fully agree with the value of changing this behavior, or think it's something that's important to you. Or maybe you want to change it because you really enjoy it. As we'll see, this is less common with health behaviors. This is a type of motivation that's common in other circumstances, but often the things we need to do to be healthier are not inherently fun and exciting and interesting, although we can take action to make them more so, and we'll talk a bit about that in this course. So we'll come back to this chart later in this survey later, but just as you're listening now, think a little bit about what would your motivation be for changing your behavior. And it might be multiple of these. It might be some combination, but you could rate how much you agree with each of these 5 statements and add those up. And this is going to, as we'll see, give you, this is a crude measure. This is not the full survey we would actually use in research, but these are some adapted items for our purposes, and you could give yourself a score on your motivational quality here. And that's what we're going to, one of the things we're going to talk about today. So what is self-determination theory? I keep saying these 3 words. The abbreviation is SDT. It is, broadly speaking, a theory of human motivation, of human nature, of growth and well-being, and what factors support and undermine all of these things. And so often in the literature, it's referred to as a meta-theory, meaning that unlike a lot of the behavior change theories we talked about last class, which are theories, but they're much smaller theories, right? They address one phenomenon. It's a set of models. We can graph it nicely on one page. SDT is a meta-theory in that it encompasses multiple theories like that. It has a broader theoretical structure to it, but within it there are 6 different mini-theories. We're not going to learn about all of those in this class. We're going to talk about it in a broad sense, but it is a major theory that addresses a lot of different questions, but all of them centering around human motivation and growth and well-being and health. And again, how we can support and undermine these things. And so this theory originates with 2 researchers, Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, really starting back in the 70s, but some of the big publications coming out in the early 80s, and then continuing to now. And this is still a very active area of research, with hundreds of researchers doing work on self-determination theory around the world now. So if you want to know more about this, you can go to the self-determination theory website, and these are just many of the different topics that it addresses, right? So again, we can see this is not just a theory of health, although that's what we're talking about in this course. We're going to talk about healthcare a bit. We're going to relate this to sports and exercise. We're also talking about health and well-being as well as goals. But this is also applied in terms of pro-environmental behaviors, workplace and organizations, education, general well-being. It's also a theory of positive psychology. If you're in that course with me, we're talking about this in sort of a whole other different way in terms of its approach to thinking about well-being. It's also a theory of psychotherapy, so this is applied very broadly. Here we're talking about it in its relation to healthcare and health behaviors and supporting health behaviors. But again, this is a broad theory that is applied in many different domains. And so why is this so important to apply to health? Well, because as we talked about in our very first lecture, one of the largest sources of variance in our health outcomes is our own behavior. A lot of the things that we get sick of and die from now are either caused by or exacerbated by or can be mitigated by our own health behaviors. And so there's a lot that we can do to create better health for ourselves if we're able to engage in positive health behaviors and avoid negative ones. But engaging in these health promotion and abstaining from these health risk behaviors, right, this is really hard to do, as we've been mentioning over and over again, right? Just because you want to do something, it doesn't mean it's always easy to follow through on that. The type of motivation and the quality of that motivation really impacts our ability to stick to our behavior change plans, whether that's exercising more, eating fewer fatty foods, or whatever our plan is. Our motivation really matters, and I think that I don't need to do much to convince you of that, but I want to, in this rest of this lecture, really focus on how and why it matters and what the research has to say about that. So, pause here.